I want to really thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name's Greg Alcorn. I'm one of the directors at Alcorn Global. And what you would have seen in that video is a little retail scene and a scenario of some shoplifters. So what I want to talk about a little bit today, and I should let you know that I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch. So the quicker we get through this, the quicker you guys get to eat. So I'm going to give you two options. Option one is I've got about 20 or 30 slides here, a lot of bullet points and a lot of stats. We can go through that and then maybe have some discussion, or alternatively I can just talk about some pretty cool stuff. So all those for option one? We have one. Well, I'll see you later. But let's talk a little bit about who we are and why we're here today. So Alcorn Global, we're a global security solutions provider. We work across the globe. We have offices in the UK, Turkey, Middle East, and in the Americas. And despite the accent, no, we don't have any in Australia yet. But we have a lot of global customers. MGM Casinos in Las Vegas, who I recently took my first trip to Vegas, and I found out that casinos are really just big shopping malls. We also have Royal Caribbean, which we're on across over 40 of their fleet. We do a lot of other cruise ships as well, but again, our communications director went on a cruise ship recently, and we found out that they're just big retail stores. It was quite interesting to see. As well as that, we have a global business in the retail industry with one retailer alone seeing over 50,000 doors. So we have a lot of experience in the area, and we're able to see it from different verticals and have a lot of experience. But something unique about what we do is we provide total situation awareness. And we do that in two ways, not only in technology, but we also do it by sitting down and talking to our customers. And one of the biggest things we're hearing at the moment is that people are not talking to their customers. They're not listening to what retailers have to say, because I know that you know your business better. We just heard from our gentleman from Sears here who was talking about everything that's going on in their business, and I know that all you out there know much more about the criminal and theft that's going on than we do. So we sit down and we listen to you. We try to understand what the threat profile you face every day, internal, external, and understand that. And as much as you see this repetition in a lot of the countries and a lot of the stores and a lot of areas, everything is different and everything is unique. And we try and profile that so that we can provide a proper solution to actually help you tackle it, rather than just throw you a whole load of product and try and get you to spend some money. We're starting to hear a real push for a return on investment. We've always heard that security systems and loss prevention systems have always had a return on investment, typically around the 4 to 6 years. But we've tried to take the initiative and what we're looking at, and the stats that we've seen in the last couple of years and how everyone's been chasing for something a little bit more, we're starting to say, well, what more can that security system do for you? I'm going to skip over this fairly quickly because I think we've all heard the figures and the size of things, and I want to get to one little bit of a chart here which tells us a little bit more directly, and we take a look up of the size of the industry. We've spoken a little bit before, and the European industry is about $2.8 trillion at the moment. But let's take a look at about how that's actually made up, because I want to point out some key things. Operations runs, as a makeup of sales, runs at about 30 to 40%. And there's this tiny little slither. I think that's actually being generous for the amount that's spent on security and loss prevention, at a little under 0.01%. We have marketing. Gosh, those guys in marketing get to have some fun. At about 19 to 20% of the budget they get to spend. I wish I had that kind of money. Shrinkage, another large piece of the pie, and we heard some figures, and we're going to focus in on that at the moment, and then the profit at the end. But I want you to really focus in on the size of the operations and the size of the marketing compared to the size of the security and the size of the shrinkage that's out there. 2.8 trillion, as I said. So it didn't look like a big figure, but we saw it before, and we're going to take a look at it again. $119 billion. It's a very large figure when you take a look at that way. And it's a big increase. We saw that it was an increase from last year on 6.6%. It's the highest ever since 2007. But what's 119 billion mean to me? Sears, I got taking a guess, you're about 5.9 billion. So we're talking about 20 times the size of Sears. Not bad. It's half the size of Microsoft. And it's 3 times the size of Starbucks. Let's bring it home. Is anyone here from Tesco's? No one from Tesco's? 3 to 4 times the size of Tesco's, one of the largest retailers here in the UK. And Interestingly enough, it's 100 times the spend on security, and yet only 10% of the spend on marketing. When you take a look in that way, that figure starts to look pretty big and pretty scary, and yet we only have this tiny little slither to be able to deal with it. So what we're hearing a lot is the security and loss prevention and the technology and the providers need to work smarter. We've all been working very hard. I'm sure you have a dozen reps that are knocking on your door working very hard to sell you everything you got, but it's about time the industry started working smarter and started saying, what more can we give for that return on investment? What can we give back? How can we help you manage your business and take the loss prevention being a drudge purchase typically to start adding value back into the business? I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing, and we do a lot of research at OnCam. We talk to our customers, we deal with everybody in a lot of the different verticals, and hopefully I can tell you a few little stories that will explain what we've come. So ever since CTV came out, people were asking for better surveillance. We saw analog go to IP. We saw IP go onto digital recording rather than on boxes. We started to see it on the net. We're starting to see it now in the cloud. And people are starting to get that, starting to move. But technology doesn't seem to move as fast in the security industry as it does outside. I was talking to, and technology is moving fast, right? It's moving very fast. I was talking to a babysitter of ours last night. And she got into the house and I said, listen, okay, there's 5 remote controls here you've got to manage. And I said, listen, you use this one to switch on, you use this one to change the channel, you use this one for this. She goes, don't worry, Greg, I've got it. I'm like, you sure? She goes, yeah, I've got 6 at home. And I was trying to explain to her when I was growing up, I used to have to get up and walk over to the TV and turn the dial. Technology has moved a long way. So total situation awareness is what people are starting to ask for. They're wanting to have the same awareness as if I was standing right there. An interesting thing, first time for a story, a lot more interesting than PowerPoints, I think. We have a customer in the US, and interestingly enough, they were losing 7,000 Dyson vacuum cleaners a year. Yes, these were very clean criminals, but they were coming in and stealing Dyson vacuum cleaners. And they came to us and said, listen, what can we do? Because, we don't know how to deal with this. And we said, well, what do you know about these guys? And we said, well, we know a fair bit about them. They'll come in, they'll walk straight over to where the Dysons are, they're picking them up, and they'll go away. I said, okay, so have you ever been able to speak to any of these guys, understand what the problem is? And one of the key things that they came down and said, they'll only do it when there's nobody else around. I said, okay, well, we can help you there. We can tell you when somebody's walking around the store alone, but I do my shopping alone, so how does that differentiate me from that guy? A little bit different. So we talked a little bit more and said, well, when I went to buy my Dyson vacuum cleaner a little while ago, I went up there, I viewed the Dysons, I took a look, I made a decision which one I was after, picking the color, picking the size, picking the upright down, spent 5 minutes there basically having a little bit of a look, and then make my decision to go. The guy who steals the Dyson vacuum cleaner comes in on his own, walks straight up, picks it up and walks away. So we were then able to say, we can use some analytics and we can say who came to that area on their own, who walked there and walked away. Can't guarantee that there's someone stealing something, but I can certainly tell you with about an 80% accuracy, they're in interest in these stores. We also heard a little while ago about the danger loss prevention people are having, and a lot of people are getting shot and everything, and similar things like that around the world. Well, in this store, they didn't want to stop the people. What they did want to stop, because interestingly enough, the next part of the story is these guys would steal the Dyson, take it home, pull it out, put some weights in it, bring it back and return it the next day and get the money back for it. So all they wanted to do is be able to flag that person as a person of interest and be able to stop them coming into the stores again. So using analytics to take it a little bit further, listening to our customers, understanding what type of people are stealing from you, what they do and how they go about it. And so 360 degree and being able to see the whole area was a way that we were able to start to look at the whole picture and see everything that was going on. But still, people are looking for more. We can help reduce it, the loss prevention as much as we possibly can. And we're seeing a movement away from typical security and also into operations. And another interesting story, let's see if I can get a few out. And this comes with a really good stat where a reduction in claims and legal claims went down by 47% for a leading grocer in the UK. And they were able to take the system and to be able to work on slip and falls. was one of their major things. And everybody knows that a slip and fall, what sort of implications it can have to a grocer, it can have to a retailer, it can have to anybody. They were able to take the system, and they had this one instance where a lady had come up to the front desk and said, listen, I've fallen over, slipped over, making a claim, having a chat. They brought it up, and wise enough, the security guys said, listen, let's just grab that footage. So we were able to very quickly for them circle the area of interest, rewind to the action that was happening in that area alone, so not going through hours of footage, but coming straight back to this area, taking a look at it and seeing there's the poor lady fallen over. You know, she happened to slip on a bowl of ketchup. Now, the guy was a little bit keen, and he said, let's find out how the bottle went off. So he kept rewinding, and he saw someone knock it over. Now, did they knock it on purpose? Did they not? 50-50, did it stand up in a court of law? I'm not sure. But let's actually track that person and see what they were doing. So we then, through the camera, were able to follow that person all the way back, and they were sitting in the little coffee shop. That's odd. They knocked a bowl of ketchup off. They didn't buy anything. They went and sat down in the coffee shop. Let's rewind the whole scene, and let's track that person back and identify that they happened to come in with an interesting person, the lady standing here putting in a claim. Very quickly, they were able to present the information, cut down the reason to go for going into court or having to put anything forward. They were able to notify the police, put up a person of interest, and nothing went any further. All done in 10 minutes. So people are looking for more. They're looking for more to put back into the security and put back into the surveillance, and a lot of these systems you have, but be able to take it to the next level. So the security industry has to work smarter about how they're doing it and what they're deploying. I want to stop talking for a little bit and talk over a little bit of a demonstration, explain a little bit what is 360. And if our techie friends down the back have resolved our problem, we'll show you something else with any luck. Here we go, that looks better. So 360 is a technology where we take a fisheye lens and be able to see a very wide spectrum. And it doesn't always look black. So the fisheye image, it takes away from a narrow field of view. Let's take a typical situation. If you have a camera, and we've got a camera looking on me at the moment, and it's probably catching me a little bit of the stage and nothing else, but it's certainly not catching a gentleman from Sears here, certainly not touching some of my colleagues from down the back, and it's certainly not picking up the guy. It's actually filming. So we're missing a lot of what's happening on in the scene. 360 enables us to capture the entire scene. We're able to see everything that's going on in the room all at one time. And as if like delayed magic, we have an image. So there's a camera just sitting right up here, and let's try to zoom out if we can for a second there, Chris. And see that we're catching everything. We're catching everything from the back fire exit up here, catching all the way through to the people standing down the back or sitting down the back in the scenario. One of the interesting things here that you have is a lot of the scenarios, and you would have seen in that lovely video, I'm sure you all remember it at the beginning, there was a section where there was two people that came in the store. This wasn't a slip and fall, but they were both going to steal something. And they came in the store, they separated, and they went in different areas. And the security guard decided to follow one of them. The security guard followed one of them who, let's say he went over here and he went to have a chat to Martin and stole Martin's bottle of water or something, and was able to catch that. That's great. We've caught that. We've been able to see it. But what they didn't see is the other person that walked over here and stole this gentleman's camera from down the front. But with 360, retrospectively, as in after the scenario, you can come back and move around the scene and rewind and see the whole picture in one. Does everyone know, if I use the term a PTZ, what type of camera a PTZ is? A pan, tilt and zoom camera, which is giving a similar functionality to what we're looking at here. We were dealing with another major grocer here in the UK who has a lot of unmanned stores. What I mean by that is they'll have security systems in the store, but they won't have anybody watching it on a regular basis. Yet they have a lot of PTZs. Now, the security guard will come into the store, he'll come have a check on a periodic basis, on a monthly basis, and he'll check, and he may zoom in at this image right here. He's taking a look at this because there was a point of interest. This may be your razor blade section. Everyone knows that within a lot of the retail stores, razor blades are a high priority for thefts to be able to come in. And he may be checking that area. He'll leave it there, and that's where the PTZ is going to be recording, and that's the information they're going to get. But is that the whole picture? If we zoom back out again, and we take a look over here, maybe this fire exit was actually where the batteries are. The battery's probably the second most desirable element in a grocery store. And we've missed that whole scene. With 360, you're able to capture the whole scene, rewind, take retrospectively a look at what else happened. So we take that technology and we say, okay, not only can we provide added value from a purely surveillance point of view, be able to zoom around the whole image, be able to, there's a technology, I'm going to use a word and try not to use too many buzzwords, called de-warping. You notice when we zoom out, Chris? Zoom right out, things are a little bit warped around the edges. You do have that fisheye image. It's a lens that probably a lot of people have seen on a typical SLR camera. But if you zoom in, the technology is able to flatten that image out so it just looks like a normal image. So we can move around that without a distortion, and it just works like a normal PTZ, as well as recording everything else that's around. So we took that technology and we said, right, let's start deploying those regular analytics that we're seeing around everywhere else and deploy them over the top of a camera that now can see an entire store, depending on the makeup, but we could easily see the entire room here and be able to follow traffic down aisles. We're able to say who's going down this aisle, who's going down that aisle. The major retailer that we're dealing with over 50,000 stores around the world, they were very interested because they wanted to know, they're small stores. The average size of the store was probably about half the size of this room. And they wanted to know what path does the customer go to the back of the store when they want to get a can of Coke, or they want to get a can of beer, or they want to get something from the fridge. What's the path that they take? Because the interesting part to them, and this is where we come to that other big figure, is the path that they regularly take is the path where we should put the merchandise that we have on sale, that we're promoting, that we're wanting to put forward, and now we move into a marketing area. And we're starting to see a return on that investment as close as 6 months because people are able to lease out to Coca-Cola, to lease out to Kleenex, or to lease out to whoever they want to put in that path that the customers are going, and lease that space at a higher rate. So we're starting to see a convergence now where we went from a typical surveillance system, we're able to bring in the operation side and be able to add value from an operation and a health and safety issue. And now we're starting to see a break into the marketing side, who, by the way, in case we forgot, are spending 20% of our sales volume, which equates to anywhere up to $1 billion in Western Europe, if not more, purely on marketing, compared to what's a little under 100 million on security. So there's a big difference there, and an opportunity for us to see a greater return on investment by applying different analytics. So let's move on from there and jump away from that and talk a little bit more about what else we can actually provide. And talk about these analytics. So working smarter. How do we work a little bit smarter? And let's talk a little bit about it because I've talked about it, but let's try and tell you and show you. This is actually a footage. For a second there, I thought we were going to have the same technical problem. This is actually a footage from one of the retailers that we're dealing with. And we've just taken this is actually a CVS store from the States, as we said before, very similar to a Boots store. And we're simply taking an aisle section here. We're taking a few standard analytics that are able to do people counting. People counting has been around for a while, but it's the way that you deploy it. The technology is great, but unless it's deployed in a process and followed to a process, and for a purpose behind it, what good really is it? And so let's take this scenario where they've simply just been able to say how many people are coming through the door, and how many people are going down the aisle to the left, and how many people are going straight forward. Let's take another scenario and say how many people have stood around this section here. And this may be your sales section. This may be where you've got the latest sale that's going on. You've got some high promotional areas, or you're wanting to see how many people are coming there. And let's see how long they're standing there for, and what sort of information we can get from that. I was talking to a major jeweler here in the UK a little while ago, and explaining the situation to them. And I said, right, your store is pretty much made up of, and you've got Rolex, and you've got Cartier, and you've got Tag, and you've got all these different watches. What if I can tell you who comes in and how long they spend looking at the different watches? What if I can tell you if someone came in and they spent a lot of time looking at that Rolex, really want that Rolex, but you know what, the tag's $1,000 cheaper, so look at the Rolex and then go buy the tag. Actually, another person I told that to said, can you actually make them do that? We're working on that one. We'll see how we go. But there's a way to be able to deploy this and be able to take it beyond just the surveillance, beyond a return on investment that's typically about 4 years, beyond us having to go back to the CFO or the CSOs and say, hey, listen, I need to spend another $100,000 of your dollars. I need to spend more money. And to be able to say, I tell you what, you know the marketing guys who are spending 30% of their budget, by the way, 30% of their budget, so over $300 million in Western Europe is being spent on marketing research. And we're able to deploy on the system that you have in store, through 360 and through the technology we have, a lot of that market research. We're able to tell you the trends of people within the store. We're able to tell you how long they're in the store for, how long they look at certain products, which aisles they go down to, what's the favorite product. We're now able to tag it to the POS information. So now let's go back to a loss prevention side of things. We can tag every bit of footage and identify when a void happened. We're able to take that bit of footage and rewind it back and see everything that happened. Did they speak to the staff member before? Was there actually even somebody there? So it's now about taking the technology we have and making it think and work harder for us. I'm standing here waiting for the next click and forgot I've got it. So we talked about surveillance. We talked about total situation awareness. We talked about what surveillance can do and seeing the whole picture. We talked about how the example of the benefits over a PTZ where you're looking in one area. We talked about the retrospective analytics on the slip and fall scenario we were talking about, where they're able to go back retrospectively, follow people around the store, and be able to identify where they came in, what they were doing, and where they are now. We talked about health and safety. We're able to identify that it wasn't a deliberate thing. We're able to understand exactly what the problem was. And we're able to see everything that's going on. We talked about people counting. Just now, we're able to identify how many people are coming in the store. I was speaking to a retailer the other day, and they spend $4,500 on the camera just to count the people who come in the door. Now, doesn't it make sense that we deploy those analytics, we deploy that technology on systems you've already got? So we talked about dwell analysis, understanding how long they're here, understanding how long they're looking at that Rolex, how much they really want it before buying a cheaper product. We talked about the smart refund just there, where we're able to track and tag footage and just send that footage of an alarm. What about if I was able to tell you a void has happened, no one was standing at the till, and send you the footage live for you to not be able to look at it on Monday morning when it happened last week, but for you to know about it right now. And we move straight onto the smart alerts to be able to take that. So we're now bridging a gap between pure security, we're taking in loss prevention, we're taking in operations and health and safety and providing marketing and a return on investment as well. So now when you go to the CEO, you're not saying, hey, listen, I want to spend your money, I want to make you money. And we go back to 119 billion. We're not talking about eliminating that 119 billion. I don't have a magic wand in my pocket. But we are looking about a way that we can reduce that value whilst increasing a return on investment in other parts of the business. So I don't want to go on much longer. I've realized that lunch is just about here. But I'll leave it there. And do we have time for any questions?